Ah, making a video. Yay. No. Anyway, so I guess I'll do the dospook. Um, Imposition argument is dead. So, just this bold talk. Like somehow, yeah, like somehow you could even, it's even possible. I mean, the evidence is so overwhelming that the act of creating something, you can't really get more in something else's face than to create it. I mean, they wrote Frankenstein. I mean, the story. It's just this. It's just the nature of creation. Is a gigantic. Like I said, you can't get more imposing than creating something. Creation. You know. You don't understand that? No, you can't understand because you're practically insane. Speaking of which, Snake Plisskenus outed himself on his little eye thing, so he's no longer patching. Um, and its excuse for dragging everybody along, pretending to be a sympathetic character with only one eye, tragic accident, all this shit, is there's lots of liars on the internet. So that's his excuse. So yeah, thanks. But yeah, I kind of knew it was bullshit, right? I mean, right? If you really lost your eye, you would seriously think of these issues of getting an eye patch that fit. It would sort of be on your mind that, yeah, I have to live with this now, so let me find hardware that matches my circumstance. If you lost your leg, you wouldn't like tie a few cabbages together and put them down there and say, okay, that'll do forever. No, you'd work on, doing something a little better than that. So anyway, it was sort of already a known. It's just waited for whatever the story was. So anyway, I mean, he did have a horrible eye, whatever incident. But yeah, he could have been upfront about it. But no, because everybody else is a liar, so he's a liar. Great, thank you. Fuck you. So anyway, on to Das Spook. Shit.
There is no imposition argument. There's not. Well, there's an argument, but it doesn't have 2 feet to stand on.
Whatever. Like I said, you might as well just throw the word imposition away. If somebody thinking they have a right to decide for another being what its fate's going to be. I mean, you can't get more imposing than drawing a straw and putting in somebody's hand and saying, there, I've done my job. I mean, you just can't. And you can use all these examples of all these things people do. I mean, even raising kids, you got to impose all the time on them. You got to impose violin lessons or impose some sort of, you got to do work to get your allowance or some other discipline all the time. And these are just the minor little ones. I mean, the big one is the decision to say, I'm going to inject you into this game called life. Yeah, come on.
And so, why does Gary say that I'm playing word games?
Because that's exactly what you're doing. You're just evading the truth. The truth is, it's one hell of a goddamn thing to be doing, pretending to be God. Investing other people in your optimism and your hope and your belief in the future you're sentencing them to exist in. Your complete denial of the risks of horrible tragedy, a kid dying when he's 6 years old. My parents had to live with watching their daughter die. That kind of put them off. That kind of gave them the better never to have, whoops, made that mistake kind of perspective. Certainly watching that wasn't worth the price of admission. But anyway, let's say all that doesn't even happen. Just like I said, you just end up with a philosophical loser. I mean, in terms of tragedies, I'm probably a bigger tragedy than my dead sister. And so yeah, this is something you just make this decision for somebody else, and then you get all butthurt because somebody actually calls you on it and saying, "Boy, you're piling one hell of a pile of responsibility on yourself, aren't you? There, where's your authority to do this? Where's your competence? Where's your list of qualifications? Everybody else is doing it. Oh, Snake Plisskenus. Yeah, fuck you."
Because without the imposition argument, he doesn't have much to work on.
Well, let's say that somehow you can conceive of some notion that somehow it wouldn't be a volition, an active decision that people make to procreate. Well, yeah, I would have nothing to work on in the sense that there'd be some other mechanism that's creating the life, right? So I'd have to deal with the biology alone. But obviously, it's not that circumstance. But I mean, I'd still have something to work with in terms of an argument that these things shouldn't be replicating. There'd still be an argument to be made that it's worth stopping. It's just that I have to stop it through some other mechanism than communication because it wasn't something they do by volition, right?
So what does he do? He yells a lot. He demands that we view the world in terms of an imposition.
Well, I don't care. You got some better word for it, but I mean, I don't think you have a better word for it. It's not a gift, all right? There's no way you could contrive some, here's a car that isn't paid for, and I'll give it to you. I'll give you the bill. What the hell is that? I mean, there's just, you can't give somebody something that, well, there's a 1 in 10 chance it'll blow up. Come on.
He demands it because it's a cornerstone. It's not the complete argument, but it's a cornerstone.
It's whatever. It's a piece of the argument. I'm just saying there's separate branches of this argument. There's the ethical arguments, and this is the imposition argument. And then there's the arguments that have to do with just the facts. Just the fact that regardless of some sort of ethical dimension you apply to this, this is the structure of life. This is the net product of it. And it can be concluded that this should not be initiated or perpetuated. That there's no rational reason to do it. That there's only reasons are projections. You like Cheetos. You're telling somebody they're going to like Cheetos. That's all you're doing. You're not proving life to have value and purpose and function. You're just declaring it.
So why does the imposition argument fail? Well, let's see. An imposition is a burden that is placed on a subject, not a definition of the subject.
Well, whatever. It doesn't have to be a burden, theoretically. It can just be something non-consensual that you do through volition. Well, it doesn't even have to be through volition. It can be through just sloppy recklessness.
The subject has to exist prior to it being imposed upon.
Well, that doesn't work at all. I mean, we're talking about the specific circumstance of creation. I mean, quite obviously, you can't have created it previously to creating it. So I think you can cut the word some slack when somebody's actually creating a sentient being, which all ethical words have something to do with. So yeah, it doesn't take much of a rational stretch to say, oh yeah, well, we can put creating in a special category. We can understand there's a slight difference between creating somebody and forcing your kid that you already created to take violin lessons. Those two kinds of circumstances are different, but they're not fundamentally different. They're still you saying you know what's best for it.
Find one example or definition that differs from this. Just try to separate yourself.
Well, every act of creation, I would say, is separate from this. If I decided to make a rat experiment, and I deliberately bred rats for that purpose, rats that would not have existed except for me imposing life on them so they could run in some maze or something, there's nothing wrong with saying I imposed on those rats.
From your life and still retain a subject. So once again, I say that the anti-needlist...
And once again, I'll say this is just preposterous word games. This is just fuck. This is the best argument you got, is to play semantical word games. Technically, you can't impose on something that doesn't exist, even though it will exist, and that's a fact. Let's just pretend it doesn't exist ever, that it will never exist. So again, you can just declare all preventative actions non-meaningful. You can say they can't be declared good. If I prevent a nuclear bomb exploding, it can't be declared a good because the bomb never exploded, and therefore the truth is it never happened. So therefore there's nothing good that was accomplished because it never happened. The bad never happened. I mean, it's just stupid. This is a game you're playing with fucking words.
Argument is connotatively negative out of the gate.
Yeah, well, the act of imposing is connotatively negative. The act of telling somebody else you know what's best for them. You will decide risk equations for them. You will put them in harm's way. You will put them in jeopardy. You will decide for them. That's what you're doing when you're procreating. You're deciding for your victim what it will appreciate, you motherfucking cunt. And you just don't want to take any responsibility for that. You have some notion in your head that someday you're going to make your little seedlings and you're going to grow them, and you don't want to take responsibility for that decision. You want to say something else made the decision. You're just copping the fuck out. You're not taking responsibility for what is, in fact, the most substantial thing you can goddamn do with your life. Short of killing somebody overtly and directly and maliciously, there's nothing you can do that's more in somebody's fucking ass than goddamn saying, I'm going to create you. Fuck you.
Their use of this improper imposition argument. This is due to an imposition being a burden. A burden has negative value. So the argument...
Every time you decide for somebody else, that has negative value. Okay, that's not preferable. It's preferable to always have a contract, always have consent. Okay, it's just a fact that when you don't have a contract and you don't have consent, it's automatically going to be a negative. Okay, it's not preferable. All right, that's just the truth here. You can't accept responsibility for that truth.
Argument is one to say life is a burden, or life has burdens within it.
That life is a risk, shithead. That's all it has to be, is a risk. All right? A risk you're taking for somebody else. Where do you get the authority to do that? And how can it possibly be called anything else but an imposition for you to make this decision for something else? God damn. I mean, you can keep going back to the biology, but what the hell is that going back to? I have authority from a DNA molecule? You're really going to do that? My authority comes with the hardware the DNA molecule gave me? I mean, then we're just right back to the fact that I can make a fist means I can throw fists? Fuck.
In any case, this is the premise. And so, if life is a burden, then it is easy to equate the Buddhist philosophy that life is suffering.
Well, who cares? Again, well, the subject isn't Buddhist philosophy. The subject isn't even life is suffering. These aren't my words. These aren't efilist words. These are the words you assholes have imposed on our position. You've decided again for us this is what we're really arguing. And it's not what we're really arguing. Life is risk.
Equivalence is much different than saying life is a container which houses suffering.
Well, who cares? This isn't a word game. So it isn't a word game to call us what we are, whatever, blood-filled organisms, and instead play some semantical game and say, no, you're a bag of skin that contains fluids or some kind of... What the fuck? What does it need this rephrasing for? Oh, that's right. To attempt to fog the atmosphere. To change the subject, to ignore the subject, to make the subject disappear.
So, even if one wrongly grants life is an imposition argument, they wrongly make life an equivalent to imposition as opposed to simply a container for it. This argument...
Whatever. Yeah, that's right. You have the capacity to do something, the potential to do something. But again, it's the doing that is the argument. The argument is about the attitude, the understanding that allows people, permits people to commit an act that is rationally can't be justified. They can only justify it with an I want or I need or I demand, but they can't justify it with rational explanation.
With the negative premises allows for further negatives to follow, such as life is suffering, life is painful. Before you know it, life is...
Oh, whatever. Like, yeah, like this isn't just a fact of life. I'm sorry, there's just no way to avoid that. It's like law. Law is intrinsically ugly. The fact that you have to even write one. The fact that you have to impose right on people. You have to force people to act properly. You have to create these incentives. It's intrinsically negative. And there's no slippery slope here. There's just the fact that that's what you have to do. And that's just the nature of the beast. And so there's nothing intrinsically wrong with imposing a responsibility type word. Imposing. Impose is a responsibility word. And so that's all it's saying, is this is a huge responsibility. What are your qualifications? What gives you the authority? What qualifies you to impose your judgment on something else and confine it to what you think it should do, to project its future?
Negative comes as a conclusion. Connotatively negative premises, connotative negative conclusion.
It's not a premises, all right? So again, that's just bullshit. It's a conclusion. So yeah, I mean, maybe it's part of the logic is to say, yes, it's an act of volition by human beings that they never got the hardware. They never earned the hardware. They never passed the test to get the hardware. So yes, we're judging their use of the hardware and declaring it what it is, an imposition of their judgment on something else.
One says that the act of volition on the part of the parents makes life an imposition. Even with volition, the fact of life's presence does not constitute that the subject has had life imposed upon it. For the subject is a life. Once again...
Well, I mean, that really doesn't... I don't know how that escapes anything. That's again, and this isn't a word game. You're going to claim this isn't playing a word game. That somehow nothing that is alive can now be imposed on because living things impose. So they're always rapists. They can never be raped. I mean, that's just idiot. It's nonsense. Rapists can be raped.
And something has to be first. Something has to first be in order to be imposed upon.
Well, whatever. Again, that's just absolute crap. I can do something right now that'll impose on the future a destiny. It'll be a fact that it imposes on them. I mean, Einstein's theories imposed a knowledge on the human race. It changed its destiny. It's just a fact. That's all. It affects future individuals who don't exist today. If I dump dioxin in a swamp somewhere, and I know in 100 years it's going to leach into the groundwater, I'm imposing on people that don't exist. But I'm certainly imposing on them. There's just no doubt about it. They don't exist, but I'm imposing on them.
As an argument starts without a being, and then by its mere presence, one is defined as being imposed upon. If anything is true, a proper definition of imposition would have a child imposing upon life, not life imposing upon the child.
Oh, whatever. I mean, am I supposed to make any sense out of that? I mean, really. I'm sorry. What the hell is that? Somehow I imposed on life. I made a decision for life. I did something wrong. No, I didn't do a goddamn motherfucking thing wrong. I didn't impose anything on anything by volition, by argument, by defense. I didn't say this is a good fucking war. Alright? That's your act, asshole. You're the one defending the war. You're the one accepting the carnage. You're the one accepting the collateral damage. You're not just accepting it. You're defending it.
The fact of your being is not an imposition. It's a consequence. I'm not distorting language.
Yes, you are. You are. You're just perverting. There's no point in having vocabulary if this is what you're going to do to words. You know, all of a sudden an action is not an action, it's a reaction. Well, of course it is, but that doesn't change the fact that it's still an action in the closed context. So that it's still perfectly valid to call everything that is an action, even though it's just a reaction. Yeah, that's right. Chain of events.
Which I'm policing it. Notice how saying life is a consequence is much more benign and true than the value-laden phrase, life is an imposition.
Well, there's no, again, you wouldn't say law is a consequence. You just wouldn't. I mean, it might be accurate, but that's not what you would say. You would recognize the fact that the law is an imposition on people. It imposes sanctions, it imposes penalties, it imposes a confinement. Okay, that's what it does. It's fundamentally imposing. It can't escape the word.
The real distorters of language are the antinatalists themselves, for without the imposition argument, they cannot create fictional states of non-existence in order to value higher.
Well, yes, they can. Okay, again, I can find nature an important process of just absolutely disgusting. I can declare it void, and I can blow it the fuck up. I can do that without any fucking problem at all. I don't need to make an argument, okay, defending anything. I don't have to defend a single undo button I press. Because every button that's been pressed to this sequence, the 3.5 billion years, was never validated by any intelligence. Nothing sanctioned the experiment. Until somebody comes up with a sanction, until somebody comes up with a qualification, an authoritative statement explaining what exactly the experiment is going to produce, I'm valid in saying it's time to hit the undo button. So I don't need to make this argument. I don't need to convince somebody that it's irresponsible, reckless, stupid, insanely imposing to make the point. Okay, because it is what it is. It is what it is regardless of the word imposition. Regardless of the fact that you do it by volition and cause this reckless harm, it doesn't change the fact that the end result is stupid organisms chasing synthetic fake projections of value while they squander and spill tons and tons of real value suffering. I mean, ambition and suffering on the scale. Ambition is worth absolutely nothing unless your ambition is to reduce suffering. That's it. That's the simple equation you're stuck with when you're a living thing, a living sentient being. That's it. And it sucks.
Then the fact of existing, their logic doesn't fail. Their logic doesn't fail, but becomes static. Imagine saying that the frame is imposed upon the bicycle. Would this be proper to say?
Well, that's not what we're saying. So again, that's just idiotic. I'm sorry. I mean, you can't. I mean, that's not comparing apples and oranges. It's comparing elephant shit and banana peels.
Of course not. There would be no bicycle without the frame. The frame is an attribute of the bicycle. Such is similar with regards to referring to life being imposed upon the individual. Life is an attribute of the individual.
Well, whatever. Again, we think. Where our brain processes, it comes to conclusions. When those conclusions have something to do with impacts on something else, like creation, okay, that's imposition. You want to play word games, go ahead, play word games, but that's all you're doing. You're just evading the conversation, evading responsibility for the fact that you are making a cognitive decision that is illogical, nonsensical, and full of selfish motherfucking bastard. You're just a selfish, egomaniacal motherfucking bastard, and you'll take no responsibility for it.
Not a component to be placed upon it. So that's the argument.
And it sucks.
The imposition argument requires an existence, an existing thing to be imposed upon. And if you say this is not the case, find any dictionary definition of imposition that points to something that does not exist.
Well, point to any definition where it points to something at all. It's about the action of the imposer. All right? It's not about the rape. It's about the rapist. The word is describing the action. It isn't describing the effect.
Or points to a faculty or an attribute of itself, saying that it imposes upon itself. Life may be a container which houses imposition, but life itself is not an imposition. A child is not an imposition.
Oh, whatever. No one's saying a child is an imposition. What they're saying is the action of creating a child is imposing. Damn. I mean, fuck.
Of the parents. It's a consequence of the parents. So, back to, Gary demanding that we view things from a particular vantage point in order to say that life is suffering, life is an imposition.
Well, again, that's your words. I don't say life is suffering. I don't do it, okay? So put words in my mouth much. Fuck you, straw man, asshole, fuck you. Yeah, fuck you. All right? And yeah, the imposition is there's the word imposition. I mean, we could look up the antonyms and synonyms or whatever, but I don't think you're going to find any that mean anything. I mean, it just happens to be a very good descriptive word for an act of saying, okay, force something unwelcome or unfamiliar to be accepted or put in place. The decision was theirs. The decision was theirs and was not imposed on them. So that would mean consent, or they did it by their volition, not somebody else's volition. But anyway, appoint, burden, charge, command, compel, constrain. Which one of these words do you want? Because these are the only words there are. Okay? I mean, they're all words that have to do with you having arrogance. You deciding for something else. You saying that you have authority. That's all. It's an authority issue. You're claiming authority. And I'm claiming you have no authority.
And so if you do grant that life is an imposition, then you already have connotatively made that negative move, and that's a premises. So Gary said, where? Point to where. I don't think you...
Yeah, well, actions that are fundamentally affect other people with volition, with knowledge of the impact, okay, that don't consider things like risk, are intrinsically and fundamentally imposing. If you haven't qualified your action, if you can't demand it, to defend it as a logical mandate, as a reasonable mandate, as something that must be done for some reason, then you're fundamentally imposing it. The law isn't imposing it. Ethics aren't imposing it. Necessity isn't imposing it. You can go right down the list of all the things that are not imposing it. Nature is not imposing it. Your judgment is imposing.
You can point to where, well, I'm pointing to the imposition argument itself as you guys are using it. If you don't look at imposition as something that occurs within life, as opposed to life itself, then you've grievously made an error.
I'm sorry. We can still call all men who have penises aren't rapists, and all penises aren't rapers. Okay, penises don't rape. Brains do. Brains commit the crime, the imposition. So again, this is just such bullshit. Evasion of responsibility. Grotesque evasion of responsibility. I mean, it is the definition of fucking goddamn evil. You won't even accept responsibility. You're going to take the authority to make a decision for something else, the most important decision possible to make, and you won't even take responsibility for it. You won't even say, yeah, I'm taking the responsibility. I'm claiming my right to be responsible. I'm saying I do have the authority. I do have the judgment. I have a right to impose. You don't have the balls to do that. You're just evading your responsibility. Oh, something else did it. The world did it. The stars did it. Some other goddamn fucking thing did it. No, you took the candy from the baby. You fucking committed the crime, shithead.
The imposition argument is by itself kind of a word game. And the word game is facilitated by Benatar, and it's perpetrated by Gary, and then it's followed by, well, who? At least 50 people. I mean...
yeah, right. People with integrity. which you people don't have any. That's what we're really revealing, right? There's people. It's not only that people have to have enough brains to get God out of their head. Oh, that's really tough to do. Or some fable about rainbows and leprechauns and UFOs and magical experiences. Yeah, so they have to be able to figure out that, oh yeah, well, sometimes my brain does a little wacky shit. Wow, that takes a whole big pile of Einstein to figure that shit out. Yeah, and then they just do a simple logical analysis. Oh, replication for the sake of replication, basically creating insidious murder bots. Yeah, that's what it is. It's murder bot. Yeah, cool. Steal the energy bot. Okay, infinitum. All right, what else is there? Ego. Aggrandizement, self-aggrandizement for the purpose of giving you the authority to impose yourself on anything and everything because you're a selfish cunt. Oh, well, yeah, that's just too brilliant. The universe needs that all over the place. Yeah, fuck you. Yeah, I mean, fuck you.
He gets more views than that, but as far as his followers are concerned, about 50 people. So feel free.
They're not followers, okay? They're people who have some sort of integrity, some appreciation for the truth, and some capacity to do logic. They don't sit there and say, I'm going to pretend words don't exist. I want to evade responsibility, so I'm going to sit there and try to create some sort of, vocabulary diarrhea to just completely evade what the real thing that I'm doing is, which is I'm claiming an authority that I don't fucking have any claim to. I'm going to pretend I'm a cop. I'm going to pretend I'm the president. I'm going to pretend I'm the God, and I can decide for other living things.
To argue, leave me comments if you disagree. And thanks for your time.
Yeah, whatever. Fuck you. I mean, really, there's nothing. I mean, it's just, like I said, you can't get more evil. To this evasion of responsibility. I will pretend that I didn't rape the woman. No, my penis did it. Some other force did it, but it wasn't my decision. I mean, it is just such a crock of shit. And here, I love this tranquil crap. Oh, look at this. 4 comments on here. What a fucking piece of shit, cunt bastard. This little whiny fucking putsy piece of crap. The way I see it is that, let me see, one day ago, I don't know which one's the first or last. Burden of existence is opposed, not exist. Okay. The way I see it is that the burden of existence, which is imposed, not existence. I don't know what that is. The burden is imposed, not existence. It's not a matter of having something to be imposed upon. It doesn't exist prior to being started, nor has to be if you understand that you are creating a life, and the burden of existence, the imposition of the fight to survive, assert yourself, etc., has begun and only terminates at death. Put simply, the imposition is a fight that your existence necessitates, not existence. This is put simply. The imposition is the fight that your existence necessitates, not existence. So your existence isn't the imposition, you being created. The imposition is the fact that you have to fight for your existence. So, well, that doesn't even make any sense. Even if it was a good game, it would still be an imposition. Stupid. This is just semantics, I think. I agree. It's an error for them to say that life is an imposition if they want to keep saying it. I agree that it is an error for them to say life is an imposition if they want to keep saying it. That doesn't make any sense. Because it's an error of language. Well, says you. Because I think that, I mean, it's just amazing. So the most aggressive action you can possibly commit, stopping the existence of something or starting the existence of something, right? These are the most aggressive actions possible. And you're going to say, no, we're not going to use this qualified language. So nobody imposes death on somebody either. Nobody ever murders anyone. Okay. This is so stupid, but I think their general understanding is correct, that it can easily be clarified, rectified by adopting the stance I just detailed. Oh, fuck you. The imposition is the burden of maintaining one's structure as a biological organism. Oh, fuck you. Since the generator has knowledge of this burden itself, we can't ignore that it has imposed something. Well, you just did ignore it. You just said it's wrong to use the word, and then you used the word. I mean, could you be more of a fucking cunt? And again, I want to reiterate to you, you made some jackass comment the last time I saw some fucking putsy, cunt, slimy comment by this fucking piece of shit. With some comment about the fact that the Magic Sandwich Show is allowed to use my real name. No, I keep sending them my Do Not God name, my In Mendum name. They keep choosing not to use those names and keep putting my name, okay? My Skype name is not my name, you fucking asshole. I think I also want to say that if you, as an adult, currently feel that you were imposed upon, then that's ridiculous. So again, so now you get thrown into the game, all right? You're expected, and then he's saying that once you're grown up and you're at the game and you say, oh, wait a minute, I'm a grown up now, I can figure out this game is really stupid, that somehow you're as liberated, as free. You're totally free to get up and leave. That there's absolutely no cost to getting up and leaving. I mean, it's just an idiotic argument. Even though I can sympathize. Well, what do you sympathize? Again, this is what breaks language. You say something's wrong and then you say you can sympathize. Well, you shouldn't be able to sympathize if you think it's wrong, shithead. I mean, I don't sympathize with rapists or dioxin poisoners or fucking crazy psychotic fuckheads. Why would I sympathize with them? The legitimacy of the imposition ends probably somewhere during puberty. After that point, we are just a consequence, and if we stay alive, it is because we accept the burden. So there's no burden to killing yourself. You're just saying it's a free ride. Killing yourself is no problem whatsoever. It's just press the button. All right, I got a button right here. Press the button, I'm dead. No problem. I got a free get out of jail free card right here. They gave it to me when I hit puberty. The government gave me this free button. I just hit the button. I just go, there's no place like being dead. No place like being dead. No place like being dead. And I click my heels 3 times and I'm dead. Instantaneously. Oh yeah, no, that doesn't exist. That's right. There is no free out of here. Okay, especially if you have any kind of entanglement with the rest of the fucking world. It's always going to be complicated because you got an estate to settle, house to clean, all that kind of crap. So this is just such a bullshit. It's just so fucking insensitive of you. You are such an evil motherfucking prick to sit there and obnoxiously tell people it's easy to kill yourself. No, it's not easy, you jackass. And it's part of the burden of being stuck here is the fact that they stick you in this circumstance where there's all these compulsions and all these circumstances that are tying you to this fucking table. You can't just get up. You have to break strings. You have to fight to get out that fucking exit door. You have to pay a price to get out the door, you fucking cunt. I mean, Jack Kevorkian went to jail for 7 fucking years fighting for the right not to break a few of those goddamn strings. And you're sitting there pretending they don't exist. Fuck you. God, you suck so fucking much. If you are blaming your parents for your existence, yes, why don't you just say period, okay? Yes, dumb. My parents made an ignorant mistake. They've admitted it's an ignorant mistake. They acted because everybody else is acting. Everybody just did. They really didn't think about the implications and the consequences. And yeah, if they had their life to do over again, they wouldn't have kids. You have to put 2 and 2 together. You are hiding behind your own cowardice with a word like that lost its legitimacy. I mean, amazing. You're going to call people cowards because they're a little intimidated by the process of trying to figure out how exactly they should off themselves. And even though they don't hate themselves, you're basically saying, no, well, if you jump off a building high enough, you'll crush and smash into enough pieces, it won't matter. Or if you take a gun bullet big enough and blow your brains out, it's certain. Fuck you. Really, fuck you. You can't die. And, the worst that you just deserve it. You deserve the worst, you little motherfucking weasel. To clarify, during childhood up to until puberty, you are forced to be. Your lack of self-awareness is only your possibility to kill yourself. So you're expecting teenagers to make the decision to kill themselves. Oh, brilliant. once you have that awareness, that opportunity, there is nothing stopping you except yourself. Well, again, that is just silly. So it's myself that has other people attached. It's myself that makes other people grieve. It's myself that is intimidated about the physical process of dying and wants to do it, make sure it's done right. That's just myself that has those concerns. It's not something called rational and logical. Oh, fuck you again. There is no imposition unless you want to say you're imposing life on yourself, which is nonsensical. Of course, I wouldn't say that. I'm not imposing life on myself. I'm attempting to maintain the integrity of myself, because that's what the biology does necessitate. That's what every fucking cell in your body is attempting to do, is to maintain its structure, you dumb fucking cunt. So yeah, I can make the legitimate argument that that's sort of something you're necessarily obliged to work within. You can't just step over the fact that everything about your whole psychology for 3.5 billion years has been built to keep you alive, you dumb shit. You might feel coerced not to abandon life, but you are not forced. Well, again, it's not about being forced, it's about burden. So again, the burden still exists. Killing yourself is not a burdenless act, you dumb fucking cunt. And that act itself has also now been imposed on you. So a bad life is imposed on you, and the obligations to break the burdens of exiting the game is also imposed upon you. So yeah, it's a double imposition, you stupid cunt. But you're not forced, so you're effectively accept the burden and cannot point the finger elsewhere. Well, that's just such a pile of shit. I hope you end up like the French lady who with the brain tumors and her eyeball was forced out of her fucking head. I hope it comes as bad as it fucking can goddamn come to you, you fucking piece of shit. I hope you die as slow and as hard and as crappy as it is possible for a human being to die, because you absolutely suck. Spewing this kind of crap makes you an evil motherfucker. One fucking evil bastard. Mocking people's horrible circumstance, mocking their angst and discomfort with the act of having to go into the great unknown, to voyage into the great oblivion of non-existence and irrelevancy, to sit there and mock people who are fucking intimidated by that. Motherfucker, you goddamn suck so fucking hard. I hate your fucking lousy, I hate every fucking molecule you're made out of, you piece of goddamn shit. Ooh. Yeah, I hit the button. I hit it.